StephanieMKriesberg, Adult Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers. Quiet the critical voice in your head, heal self-doubt, and live the life you deserve. Delving into the often misunderstood dynamics between narcissistic mothers and their daughters, StephanieMKriesberg's Adult Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers is an insightful guide to understanding and overcoming the deep-seated impacts of such relationships. This book dissects the complex layers of narcissism, shedding light on its origins and manifestations, while empowering readers to recognize that they are not to blame for their mother's behaviors. Through relatable anecdotes and practical strategies, Kriesberg offers a pathway to quiet the critical voice in one's head, combat self-doubt, and set boundaries. By the end of this summary, you'll discover the tools needed to reclaim your voice and begin living the life you deserve, one free from the overshadowing influence of a narcissistic parent.
Understanding Narcissistic Mothers. Imagine spending a lifetime believing that earning your mother's approval would unlock the loving relationship you've always desired, only to learn that her narcissism isn't about you at all. Realizing that you are not the root of your mother's hurtful actions is the first step towards carving out a happier life for yourself. Narcissism is a complex personality disorder, not something children can cause, even as adults, despite what you've been led to believe. To truly move forward, it is essential to grasp what narcissism entails and why it emerges. Drawing inspiration from the Greek myth of Narcissus, the disorder is marked by self-focus and obsession. However, these traits are grounded in something deeper, pathological insecurity. This insecurity, influenced by upbringing, genetics, temperament, and societal factors, drives your mother to dominate or manipulate interactions because she fundamentally feels insufficient. She might enforce her control over situations or guilt you into service to keep you from slipping away, yet remains oblivious to her own insecurities and emotional barriers. Your mother's self-absorption and lack of empathy result in an inability to recognize the pain she inflicts. Her world operates solely through a lens aimed at concealing her perceived inadequacies, driven by fear of exposure. Despite her critical or manipulative behavior, she is unlikely to change, rooted as she is in these deep-seated issues. Accepting this harsh reality can be transformative. It liberates you from the futile quest to alter her behavior. Instead, focus on cultivating skills to manage your relationship with her effectively, minimizing its emotional toll on you. Let's delve into how the behaviors of narcissistic parents influence their children's emotions and explore strategies to nurture a healthier dynamic. Taming the inner critic. Imagine constantly battling an inner critic, always whispering doubts and feeding anxieties. This was Lauren's reality. Raised with the expectation to mirror her mother's prestigious scientific career, Lauren had aspired to something entirely different. She longed to be an elementary school teacher, but societal and familial pressures nudged her away from her dreams, relegating her to a role she despised, a research assistant in a science lab. Lauren's mother, a notable scientist, dismissed her daughter's ambitions, leading Lauren to adopt a path that neither fulfilled or improved their strained relationship. Instead, it deepened her internal conflict. A relentless mental chatter convinced her she was flawed for not loving the life her mother envisioned for her. This critical inner voice wasn't just background noise, it was a manifestation of repetitive negative thinking, a pattern common among children of narcissistic parents. With its endless loop of critical self-evaluation, often correlates with anxiety and depression, disrupting both mental clarity and physical well-being. As children, many like Lauren learned to anticipate and internalize the harsh assessments of a narcissistic parent, shrinking themselves to minimize conflict, doubting their judgments, and questioning their worth. It's not that they possessed a natural tendency to worry, the constant criticism simply became an ingrained part of their psyche. But here lies a crucial revelation, that nagging, judgmental voice is not truly your own. It's a lingering echo of your parents' influence, masquerading as your inner critic. Recognizing this, you can begin to detach from its grip. Rather than trying to silence that voice, a task as futile as repressing its source, you can distance yourself by acknowledging its presence but refusing its dominance. Lauren found empowerment through personification, naming her inner critic Aunt Marge, a nod to the critic from Harry Potter. By acknowledging when Aunt Marge began her tirades and consciously turning down her volume, Lauren found space for her own voice to emerge. This exercise in self-detachment enabled her to reclaim her mental narrative and focus on her ambitions without the anxiety-laden filter of external expectations. In doing so, Lauren demonstrates how recognizing and naming your inner critic can be a transformative step in quieting its influence, allowing you to cultivate a mental environment where your true voice can flourish amidst the static. Transforming shame into strength. Shame, the belief that you are fundamentally flawed, can overshadow significant achievements and cloud self-worth. When journalist Allison, at 45, won an award for her investigative report on local river pollution, she should have felt elated. Instead, shame crept in as she overheard someone question her scientific credentials. Her inner critic immediately invalidated her success, convinced that someone with a scientific background could have performed better. The joy of her accomplishment became overshadowed by the dread of being exposed as a fraud. This deep-seated shame is a familiar foe for individuals raised by narcissists. It plants the seed of doubt that one is undeserving of success or acceptance. It's like a persistent echo in the mind, reinforcing self-deprecation with each trigger. Our brains capture these shameful moments rapidly, bypassing logic and storing them as trauma-induced responses. For Allison, hearing the comment at the awards ceremony instantly reignited memories of her narcissistic mother's ridicule, reinforcing her childhood sense of inadequacy. Shame manifests in physical and emotional reactions. When it strikes, take a moment to reflect on its presence. How does it permeate your thoughts and affect your body? Recognize the flushed face, trembling legs, or sweaty palms as signs of your body's age-old defense mechanisms kicking in. Acknowledge these reactions as remnants of past traumas without judging yourself harshly. Identifying and committing to your core values can counterbalance the weight of shame. While shame nudges you to retreat, clinging to self-worth and meaningful aspects of life helps push back. Despite her initial reluctance to share her triumphs, Allison chose to confide in her friends, reinforcing her values of connection and environmental advocacy. This pivotal choice not only debunked her feelings of unworthiness but also motivated her to write more pieces addressing critical issues. To further disarm shame, reframe your perspective by tracing its origins. By digging through your past, you recognize patterns linked to those who may have instigated your feelings of inadequacy, likely a narcissistic parent. It's crucial to understand that their hurtful remarks stem from their own insecurities, not your shortcomings. Their worldview does not define your worth or the perceptions of others. Shift your narrative by recognizing that the power to validate your achievements and self-worth rests within you, nurtured by resilience and self-compassion. Through understanding and acceptance, shame loses its grip, allowing you to celebrate your journey and accomplishments with full authenticity and courage. Empowering boundaries. Picture the vulnerable child you once were, often overshadowed by a narcissistic parent's relentless need for control and validation. Such a childhood can leave deep imprints, as seen in Janice and Brittany's stories. Janice's mother would frequently invade her privacy, dismissing Janice's protests as overreactions, asserting her ownership over the household. These actions eroded Janice's sense of self-worth and autonomy, making it clear that her voice held no importance. Meanwhile, Brittany was caught in her mother's emotional web, expected to endlessly listen to complaints about her grandmother. Any resistance was met with accusations, manipulating Brittany into prioritizing her mother's emotions over her own. Her feelings were consistently disregarded, much like Janice's, leaving her trapped in her mother's self-serving narrative. These scenarios are quintessential of life with a narcissistic parent, crafting a childhood where one's sense of agency and self-respect is continually undermined. This often extends into adulthood, manifesting in situations where asserting yourself feels daunting. Whether it's the persistent neighbor relying on your help or colleagues disrespecting your personal beliefs, the feeling of helplessness echoes back to the childhood dynamic under a narcissist's thumb. Narcissistic mothers often instill a belief in their children that privacy is a privilege they can revoke, thoughts and feelings must align with their own, and the child's primary role is to ensure the mother's happiness. This upbringing leaves little space for developing healthy boundaries, critical internal guidelines that define acceptable behaviors and treatment from others. Creating boundaries necessitates self-awareness and the courage to prioritize personal needs, despite potential discomfort or disapproval from others. For children of narcissistic parents, this task can seem insurmountable. The journey to set boundaries involves battling the internalized critical voice that invalidates one's own thoughts and emotions. Fortunately, boundary setting is a skill that can be nurtured at any age. Initially, the process might seem overwhelming, but it's crucial to start small and practice self-compassion along the way. Acquire the skill gradually through a methodical two-step process. Begin by identifying a specific area in your life where you seek empowerment. For example, like Allison, you might wish to strengthen friendships due to your appreciation for social connections. Set a small, attainable goal that aligns with this desire, such as limiting work obligations to meet a friend for dinner once a week, even if it angers your boss. As you practice, you'll become more comfortable facing the discomfort that often accompanies boundary setting. While uncomfortable feelings may persist, they won't hinder your progress toward a life that respects your own needs and values. Over time, asserting your boundaries will become second nature, empowering you to live authentically and with confidence.
In Adult Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers, StephanieMKriesberg provides a comprehensive framework for understanding and healing from the influence of narcissistic parenting. She reveals how ingrained behaviors, from anxiety to shame and powerlessness, manifest as a result of a mother's narcissism. Kriesberg emphasizes the liberation that comes with recognizing the separation between your own identity and your mother's critical voice. By employing techniques such as personifying negative thoughts and setting personal boundaries, readers can diminish the power of these internalized messages. Ultimately, the book reinforces that neither your worth nor your happiness hinges on mending a fractured relationship, but rather on embracing your autonomy to craft a fulfilling life guided by your core values and aspirations.